Assalamu alaikum students. Today we will discuss the discharge and transport of the gametes to the site of fertilization. Now during the reproductive age, the individuals of both sexes release mature gametes from their respective gonads. The process of release of ovum from the ovary of the female is called ovulation. After being released from the ovary, the female gamete passes into the uterine tube where it waits to be fertilized by a male gamete. The male gametes, the spermatozoa, are formed in large numbers in the testes of the adult male. After being released from the testes, the spermatozoa remain within the male genital ducts for a certain period of time, and then they are released from the male body. As a result of the sexual intercourse, the spermatozoa are introduced into the female genital tract to reach the ovum and fertilize it. So first of all, we will study sperm transport and changes occurring through male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. So spermatogenesis, it begins at puberty and it includes all the events by which spermatogonia are transformed into spermatozoa, which I have told you earlier in the spermatogenesis, in the lecture on the process of spermatogenesis. Now you can see here, this is the section of the testes showing a section of the seminiferous tubule, and in this seminiferous tubule section you can appreciate this cell, the yellow one, which is the Sertoli cell, which is the supporting cell for this germinal epithelium. Now this is the germinal epithelium in various stages of development. You can appreciate the spermatogonia type A, then type A pale, then type B pale, then the primary spermatocyte. At this stage of primary spermatocyte, the meiosis 1 starts and they divide into secondary spermatocytes. Secondary spermatocytes immediately divides into spermatids by the process of meiosis 2. Now this spermatid is a rounded cell. It changes its shape from this round shape to this sperm shape, mature sperm shape. This process is known as spermiogenesis. And in the end, the mature sperms, they are embedded on the apical surface of these Sertoli cells. Now in human, the time required for the spermatogonium to develop into mature spermatozoon is approximately 74 days, and approximately 300 million sperms are produced daily. When fully formed, the spermatozoa enter the lumen of the seminiferous tubule, and from there they are pushed toward the epididymis by contractile elements in the wall of the seminiferous tubules. Although initially only slightly motile, the spermatozoa obtain full motility in the epididymis. Now during their journey through the epididymis, you can see here, this is the testes. Now these sperms have been expelled into the epididymis. So during their journey through the ductus epididymis, which takes about 12 days, the spermatozoa undergo a maturation process during which they attain motility, capability to swim forward. The epithelium lining the duct of epididymis secretes special glycolipids and glycoproteins which are called decapacitation factors. These decapacitation factors block the receptors on the cell membrane of the sperm head and render the spermatozoa temporarily infertile. So two processes are occurring. First of all, they are increasing their capability to swim forward, and the number 2 process is the decapacitation process, that is their fertility is temporarily stopped. The spermatozoa are kept in store in the tail region of the epididymis, and then at the occasion of ejaculation, the spermatozoa are passed from the epididymis into the ductus deferens, which conveys them to the urethra for ejection from the body of the male. So you can see here vas deferens, and then into the ejaculatory ducts, and through ejaculatory ducts into the urethra, and then outside. If ejaculation does not occur for about 30 days, the stored spermatozoa undergo a process of degeneration, and the end products of this process are absorbed back into the blood through the walls of ductus epididymis. Due to degeneration of old spermatozoa, space becomes available for the storage of fresh spermatozoa. Now, in all the mammals, as I have told you before, including the humans, the union of male and female gametes occur within the genital tract of the female. This is achieved by the sexual intercourse termed as coitus. As a result of coitus, the spermatozoa are ejaculated from the male urethra along the secretions of the accessory sex glands, that is the seminal vesicles, the prostate and the bulbourethral glands. This aggregate mass is known as seminal fluid or semen. Now, what is the composition of semen? It consists of, the semen is a suspension of spermatozoa in the seminal plasma, which is a mixture of secretions of the accessory sex glands. The constituents of the seminal plasma includes fibrinogen, fructose, ascorbic acid, citric acid, prostaglandins and fibrinolysin. The normal volume of the semen from a single ejaculation varies from 2 ml to 6 ml. The sperm density is also variable. The average sperm count is about 100 million per ml. So, once inside the only 1% of the sperm deposited in the vagina enters the cervix, where they may survive for many hours. Movement of sperm from the cervix to the uterine tube occurs by muscular contraction of the uterus and uterine tube and by their own propulsion. Now you can see here the sperms are deposited in the vagina, and from here they travel up to the uterine cavity and then uterine tube. The trip from the cervix to oviduct, it requires minimum of 2 to 7 hours, and after reaching the isthmus, sperms becomes less motile and cease their migration. After ovulation, the sperm again becomes motile, perhaps because of chemotactic factors released from the cells around the egg, and they swim to the region of the ampulla of the uterine tube, where fertilization usually occurs. Now, spermatozoa are not able to fertilize the oocyte immediately upon arrival in the female genital tract, but they must undergo capacitation and acrosomal reaction to acquire the capability to fertilize it. As I have told you before, in the male reproductive system, that is in the epididymis, the sperm is rendered infertile temporarily by decapacitation process. Now, capacitation process occurs in the female reproductive system, so it is the period of conditioning in the female reproductive tract that in the human lasts about 7 hours. Much of this conditioning which occurs in the uterine tube entails the epithelial interaction between the sperm and the mucosal surface of the tube. During this time, a glycoprotein coat and seminal plasma proteins are removed from the plasma membrane that overlies the acrosomal region of the spermatozoa. Only capacitated sperms can pass through the corona cells and undergo acrosome reaction. Now the second process, that is the acrosome reaction, which occurs after binding to the zona pellucida, is induced by zona proteins. Now the capacitation process occurs, and then the next process is the acrosomal reaction. Capacitation process is the removal of the decapacitation factors from the cap of the sperm, and acrosomal reaction is it occurs when the sperm binds to the zona pellucida of the ovum. Now this reaction culminates in the release of enzymes needed to penetrate the zona pellucida, including the acrosin and trypsin-like substance. The phases of fertilization include phase 1, penetration of the corona radiata, phase 2, penetration of the zona pellucida, and phase 3, fusion of the oocyte and sperm cell membrane. Now the female oocyte, female gamete formation, we have studied it before, but its transport and to the site of the fertilization. Now at puberty, the female begins to undergo regular monthly cycles. These cycles are controlled by hypothalamus. Gonadotrophin releasing hormone produced by the hypothalamus act on cells of anterior lobe of the pituitary gland, which in turn secretes gonadotrophins. Now these gonadotrophins are the follicle stimulating hormones and the luteinizing hormone. They stimulate and control cyclic changes in the ovary. So what are the cyclic changes in the ovary? At the beginning of each ovarian cycle, 15 to 20 primary stage pre-antral follicles are stimulated to grow under the influence of FSH. Now why 15 to 20? This you have to tell me by remarks. Why 15 to 20? Why not one follicle starts developing? Now under the influence of FSH hormone. Now the FSH, it stimulates 15 to 20 of these cells from a pool of continuously forming primary follicles. Under normal condition, one of these follicles reaches full maturity and only one oocyte is discharged. The others degenerate and then they become atretic. Now in the next cycle, another group of follicles is recruited, and again only one follicle reaches maturity. Consequently, most follicles degenerate without reaching full maturity. Now you can see the various stages of development: the primordial follicle, the primary follicles, and then when the antrum appears, secondary follicle, and this is the mature Graafian follicle. Now at the mid cycle, there is LH surge, which causes the ova to ovulate. So this is the ovulating oocyte, and what remains of this remaining follicle forms the corpus luteum, which secretes the progesterone. Now for developing follicular granulosa cells, they secrete estrogen, but when the ova is discharged at the time of ovulation, the remaining cells, they are converted into another structure known as corpus luteum, which secretes the progesterone. So in days preceding the ovulation, immediately preceding the ovulation, under the influence of FSH and LH hormones, the secretory follicles grow rapidly to a diameter of about 25 mm. Now, coincident with the final development of the secondary follicle, there is an abrupt increase in the LH that causes the primary oocyte to complete the meiosis 1. So this is the primary oocyte. You remember that it is arrested in the diplotein stage of meiosis 1. So under the influence of LH hormone, these primary oocyte complete meiosis 1 and the follicle enters the pre-ovulatory stage. Now meiosis 2 is initiated, but the oocyte is arrested in metaphase approximately 3 hours before ovulation. In the meantime, the surface of ovary begins to bulge locally, and at the apex an avascular spot, the stigma, appears. Now if this is the surface of the ovary, so there a avascular spot appears, and this spot is known as stigma. The high concentration of LH increases collagenase activity, resulting in digestion of collagen fibers surrounding the follicle. Prostaglandins levels also increase in response to LH surge and causes local intramuscular contraction in the uterine wall. These contractions extrude the ovarian wall. These contractions extrude the oocyte, which together with its surrounding granulosa cells from the region of the cumulus operus break free and floats out of the ovary. Some of the cumulus operus cells that rearrange themselves around the zona pellucida to form the corona radiata. Now these are the cumulus operus cells. Now they rearrange around the oocyte. Now this oocyte is in the second meiotic division. It is the secondary oocyte. It is in the second meiotic division, arrested in metaphase state when it is ovulated. So these are the cumulus operus cells which are surrounding the secondary oocyte, and they rearrange forms the corona radiata. Now corpus luteum, after ovulation, the granulosa cells remaining in the wall of the ruptured follicle together with the cells from the theca interna are vascularized by surrounding vessels. Under the influence of LH, these cells develop a yellowish pigment and change into luteal cells, which form the corpus luteum and secrete estrogen and progesterone. Progesterone together with some estrogen causes uterine mucosa to enter the progestational or secretory stage in preparation for implantation of the embryo if fertilization occurs. So the hormone produced from this structure will cause changes in the uterine endometrium for the preparation of the implantation. Now shortly before the ovulation, fimbria of the uterine tube sweep over the surface of the ovary. You can see here the fimbrias. These are the fimbrial region of the uterine tube. They sweep over the surface of the ovary, and the tube itself begin to contract rhythmically. It is thought that the oocyte, surrounded by some granulosa cells, is carried into the tube by these sweeping movements of the fimbria and by motion of cilia on the epithelial lining of the uterine tube. Once inside the tube, the cumulus cells withdraw their cytoplasmic process from the zona pellucida and lose contact with the oocyte. Now once the oocyte is in the uterine tube, it is propelled by peristaltic muscular contractions of the tube and by the cilia in the tubal mucosa, with the rate of transport regulated by endocrine status during and after ovulation. In humans, the fertilized oocyte reaches the uterine lumen in approximately 3 to 4 days. You can see here. Now this is the ampullary part where the fertilization occurs. So if fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum reaches maximum development approximately 9 days after ovulation. It can easily be recognized as a yellowish projection on the surface of the ovary. Subsequently, the corpus luteum shrinks because of degeneration of the luteal cells and form a mass of fibrotic scar, the corpus albicans. Now, simultaneously, progesterone production it decreases and precipitating menstrual bleeding. So, this is how the menstrual bleeding occurs, and then the cycle again starts.